Good evening and welcome to the I-15 Environmental Impact Statement virtual public meeting. We're really glad to have you all able to attend and join this meeting with us this evening. And hopefully we'll be able to share some information that'll be helpful and help you understand where we're at with the study. And we're excited to get your comments and questions. My name is Dan Adams and I'll be the moderator for this virtual meeting this evening. Just to make sure everybody knows that make sure you're at the right meeting. This is for the I-15 Environmental Impact Statement from Farmington to Salt Lake City. Tonight, we're going to be sharing with you some of the draft alternatives that have come from all the comments we received from many of you in April of this year. And so we're excited to share those draft alternatives with you and get your thoughts and feedback. I'm going to just kind of quickly run through our agenda and plan for this evening. Here on this Zoom webinar, we have members of the consultant team and folks from UDOT that are here to present and then answer your questions at the end of the presentation. We're going to go through and we'll start off with Sarah Hoy from NeighborWorks is going to do a quick introduction in Spanish, and then Tori Anderson, who's helping us here with the technical part of this meeting tonight, is going to give a little bit of instructions about the Q&A process and about language translation. And then our project manager from UDOT, Tiffany Pocock, will then do a presentation. We'll walk through some PowerPoint slides with all of us. And then we'll have our question and answer session to end out the night. Just a quick thing on ground rules. We just ask that when people type in their questions or comments that you please do so in a respectful way, and using clean language would be appreciated. Just also as a quick reminder, tomorrow we'll be covering the same information at the Rose Park Elementary School from 5 to 7 with our first in-house public meeting, followed by Wednesday, the South Davis Recreation Center will hold the second public open house from 5 to 7 there as well. And the same information will be shared that's shared tonight at both of those in-person meetings. Just also a quick note for both of those in-person open houses that to help remove some of the barriers for some folks attending, we also will have food provided at those, as well as transportation and events for children to come and participate in. Okay, so Sarah, I'll hand it over to you.
Hola y bienvenidos a esta reunión virtual para la declaración del impacto ambiental de la Interestatal 15. Vamos a escuchar mientras miembros del equipo del proyecto presentan los aspectos del plan y al fin vamos a responder a las preguntas de ustedes. Si tengan preguntas, por favor, escríbanlas en la función de preguntas y respuestas en su pantalla. Y si quieren aprender más, mañana también vamos a tener otra reunión en Rose Park Elementary en persona a las 5 de la tarde. Entonces, vamos a empezar y gracias por su participación.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. Tori.
All right. Hello, everyone. Just to give you a heads up, the chat is disabled for this meeting. If you have any questions about anything, the study, or tech questions, you can put those in the Q&A. They'll go to us and we're tracking all of those. We hope to get to all of your questions. But yeah, even if you have just tech questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A. We'll help you out. We've also enabled captions for this meeting, so you can turn those on. Didn't work so well for the Spanish portion just there, but yeah, in English it works great. Also, we're recording this meeting, so that recording will be available afterward on the website. And also we have just a summary of how this meeting works in a virtual participation guide, which we're going to put in the chat here soon. So thanks for joining.
Excellent. Thank you, Tori. Okay, Tiffany, we'll hand it over to you to go through our presentation for this evening.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tiffany Pocock, UDOT Project Manager for the I-15 EIS between Farmington and Salt Lake. I appreciate the opportunity to share some information with you all today. Thanks for your interest in the study. in the future of your communities. I assure you, we share your interest in quality of life in your area and our region and state. Just to give you a preview of what I'll cover today, first I want to provide an overview of how we got to today with a process overview and remind everyone of the purpose of our effort here. The next topic will be a pretty thorough review of the potential transportation solutions we've created. These are known as alternatives in the EIS process. Because we've been pretty thorough and have a number of options, this portion of the presentation will take a decent amount of time. I'll walk through how you can give us feedback on the alternatives. And finally, we'll respond to as many questions as we can in time we've scheduled for the meeting. Since we are in a webinar format, you are welcome to submit questions at any time as I'm presenting. Our team is going to track and prepare questions and responses for those as part of our agenda. So we'll dive into the presentation. Just to orient everyone, I want to begin with a quick EIS process overview and let you know where we are. We have already been through an early scoping and formal scoping phase, during which we developed a purpose and need statement. That statement is guiding how we are making decisions and the types of alternatives we've developed thus far. During the purpose and need phase, we learned a lot by listening a lot. We listened to the community members up and down the corridor through workshops, formal comment period, attending community events, and presenting to city planning commissions and other small working groups. Based on that feedback and technical information and analysis, we went to work formulating alternatives to address the needs you told us about and that our analysis showed needed attention. So now we're in the middle of the alternatives phase, and we're excited to share the alternatives, public review, and feedback. I'll talk a little bit more about that process in a minute. As we've developed alternatives, we've worked really hard to be true to our purpose and need statement, which was based heavily on what we heard from the community and on UDOT's mission. Our alternatives should improve quality of life for all users. This means we made decisions not just with vehicles in mind, but also those who walk, ride a bike or scooter, or use other active ways to get around, and who are connecting to transit. As we've kept all users in mind, we feel we've identified alternatives that don't just improve mobility, though that is an important component of the study, but that also improve health by providing safe options for users to get around in an active way if they choose, strengthen the economy by updating infrastructure and providing better access to jobs and opportunities with a strong transportation system, and connect communities with improved crossings at all interchanges and even new and improved crossings between interchanges. As I review the alternatives shortly, I'll be pointing out features of each that will feel improved quality of life for all types of users in our transportation system. As I mentioned, our purpose and need was closely tied to the quality of life pillars found in Utah's transportation vision. You see those pillars in the 4 colors here, and you'll see the corresponding icons throughout this presentation, indicating where we feel our alternatives tie to these elements of quality of life. Within each area, we have identified the ways our alternatives could contribute to these quality of life elements. I won't read through each of these alternatives for our presentation today, but those who review this material later can pause here and review this in the study documentation website as well. The purpose and need guides our decisions as we work our way through the EIS process, which is really about making decisions. This figure represents the key decision points in the process that lead ultimately to a full draft environmental impact statement. We work through initial technical analysis and public input to develop a broad set of alternatives within the study area. We then do an initial evaluation, known as level 1 screening, where we see if these alternatives meet the purpose and need that I've just touched on. Those that are not documented are removed from further study. When we do preliminary engineering to answer some basic questions about the alternatives to determine if they are reasonable, practicable, and should be studied further. This is where we are now. We have alternatives ready for further refinement, and we would like public input to help us do that. As I review alternatives with you today, keep in mind the most helpful input we hope to get at this stage is how these ideas will work for you and your community. Will they improve your health, your mobility, your economic opportunity, your connections to things that matter? Our next step will be to look more closely at impacts with much more detailed engineering, but we need your help to refine this set of alternatives first. I won't spend time going through this information line by line, but we wanted to demonstrate how this decision-making process is detailed, data-driven, and thoroughly including specific criteria for each category with corresponding measurements. For those reviewing this presentation later, feel free to pause and review the detailed questions we asked to rule an alternative in or out. This information is also found in the documentation on our website if you'd like to get into more detail there. This is our level 1 criteria, which is based on our quality of life categories. Level 2 screening is based primarily on factors defined in NEPA. This is the analysis we'll do next, following this public comment phase and additional more detailed engineering work. Our next topic today is a detailed review of the alternatives themselves. But before I start into that, I wanted to orient you a little to the terms we've used in some of our graphics. In some cases, we've needed to use shorthand, and in all cases, we wanted to be clear about what is being proposed so you can readily compare different features of the alternatives. You will see terms like these listed here: a SPUI, or a single point urban interchange, or similar to what you experienced today at 600 North. A diamond interchange, which you currently are seeing at Parrish, or a collector distributor, which is similar to what you see in 9th South to 21st South in Salt Lake City. We also have Mainline, used to reference the main set of travel lanes, general purpose lanes on I-15 that have no limitations, reversible, which are travel lanes in one direction at a time, or high occupancy toll hot lanes, where motorists either have companion passengers or pay for use. We also have bike lanes, which most of the time are considered buffered. We also have a SUP, or shared use path, where bikes and peds can use the corridor together, and NB, or northbound, and SB, southbound. As I touched on before, we are focused on providing alternatives that work for all users. What you see here on the left are some of the key considerations we used in crafting safe alternatives for those who walk, bike, or have mobility challenges. The graphic on the right lists the locations within the study area where we've proposed specific alternatives that address non-motorized travel. We hope that you can see we have put a lot of thought into accommodating all users of the transportation system, and that thought process will contribute to better quality of life for those traveling in this area. This is another detailed table I won't spend time walking through line by line. For those referencing this presentation later, it lists all of the alternatives at the interchanges by location and then summarizes the features of each. This table summarizes the options between interchanges. These are primarily new or improved proposed crossings of I-15 to improve mobility, health, and better connect your communities. As a reminder, more detailed information is found on our documentation on the website for those who are interested. All right, now settle in as we walk you through the alternatives we prepared to meet the purpose and need I've covered. A few general reminders before I jump in. You'll see some graphical representations of cross-sections and of designs. The purpose of these graphics is to allow you to understand what we're proposing with an alternative and how it would work and what benefits it might provide. Rather than the specific widths or impacts of those will be refined in the future phases. This in mind, some of the graphics are zoomed out so we can point out those features. If you want to take a deeper dive, you can go to our website and there is an interactive map that allows you to zoom in and out, turn alternatives on and off, and provide feedback right on the map. Widths shown on the graphics here are at a particular location and will vary based on location and will likely change as we continue to progress our engineering work. Cross-sections are a demonstration of how a roadway or a bike path or other alternative might look, but that could change as we move forward based on the input we receive and other technical factors. As a reminder, we have only moved these alternatives forward enough to make sure they work and meet the purpose and need. Additional engineering will optimize them for width, function, and other factors. We'd invite you to focus less on specific widths or impacts you might observe and more on the concepts being proposed. Feedback will be best for us to refine the alternatives. With that said, I'll first focus on Mainline I-15, where we've proposed 2 alternatives. Option A includes 5 general purpose lanes plus 1 high occupancy toll lane or hot lane in each direction. You can see there are also what are known as auxiliary lanes in some areas. These are additional lanes that primarily connect interchanges. This alternative keeps consistency with the existing hot lane system and is consistent with the long-range transportation plan for this area. Option B also includes 5 general purpose lanes, but the HOT lanes would be built as reversible lanes, with travel only allowed in one direction at a time based on time of day. The benefit of this is improved travel times in future years. Talk more about that momentarily. This alternative does pose some considerations, like snow removal, emergency access, and additional staffing required to operate the system. As you can see, based on the cross-section, the reversible system requires more width, 16 more feet at this particular location. We'll be interested to hear from the public about the trade-offs between more freeway width and improved travel times. Quickly, this just illustrates where I-15 motorists would enter and exit the reversible lanes. 4 south on the south and just north of Parrish on the north. Traffic would flow south in the morning and north in the evening. These lanes would be separated by barrier, so once motorists are in the lanes, they remain there until the northern and southern access points are reached. These graphics just illustrate a closer look at the connections on each end. Here you can see how the 2 Mainline I-15 options compare to current conditions, to a scenario where we do nothing now and 2050 and to each other. The table on the left shows average travel times in the study area within the 4-hour peak periods in the morning and afternoon. The table on the right shows average speeds in the same periods. As you can see, if we do nothing, we expect to see travel times increase from just under 20 minutes today to around an hour in 2050, with speeds dropping from 60 miles per hour to closer to 15 or 20 in the future, depending on direction. Option A, we still see an increase in travel time from today of about 10 minutes and a drop in speeds of about 20 miles per hour. Option B would result in an increase in travel time of a few minutes and a slight drop in speed as compared to today. Again, we'll welcome your feedback on the trade-offs between travel times and other factors associated with implementing a reversible lane system. Now I'll walk through the interchange areas moving north to south. I'll remind everyone again that what you'll see are representations of particular locations in the cross-section drawings to let you see how the cross-section might be improved. In the design features on the right, we've called out the main features of the alternatives so you know what we're proposing and can compare alternatives to each other more easily at each location. I'll say once more that the draft memos of our website contain additional detail beyond that what we've covered today. Here in Farmington, option A would keep the existing configuration at Sec 200 West with a southbound off-ramp and a northbound on-ramp at I-15. While roads and bridges would be rebuilt, the same traffic pattern and connections would generally be available, providing for consistency in the area. We would also keep and improve the bike and ped connection across I-15 at Glover's Lane. In option B, we would add a SPUI at Glover's Lane. This would provide full connections to I-15 at Glover's Lane, reducing traffic at Park Lane and Parrish Lane, and providing for new and additional access to I-15 for Farmington and North Centerville residents. The new interchange would include a separated shared use path to continue to accommodate those traveling by bike, foot, or other active means. This map shows a closer look at the potential Glover's Lane spooey, including how the shared use path would function. In option C, we propose creating a full interchange at 200 West, which would provide access to I-15 in all directions. Improvements to cross streets in this alternative are similar to those in option A. Moving to Centerville and the Parish Lane area, option A proposed construction of a diamond interchange at Parish. Starting at Parish, you'll see several interchanges where one option includes a diamond interchange with another option including a spooey interchange. For a quick general comparison of the two types of interchanges, diamond interchanges are generally more friendly to bikers and walkers due to the way the ramps are designed. Given that, we have not proposed separated bike and ped shared use paths at the interchanges. Some diamond interchange alternatives do include separate bike and pedestrian features away from the interchanges. Spoolies are generally less friendly to bikes and pedestrians. For this reason, with all the spoolie options, we have provided for a separate shared use path at the interchanges, as well as away from interchanges in some instances. As for vehicles, a spoolie can generally move about 20% more vehicles through the interchange in the same amount of time as a diamond. You'll see these trade-offs highlighted throughout the pedestrian or presentation of alternatives. A specific feature to Parish Lane that you'll see here and in the spoolie option is a northbound direct connection to the east frontage road, which improves mobility for vehicles and removes some vehicles from Parish Lane, increasing safety for all users. Also in option A, we're proposing a shared use bridge at Porter Lane. As mentioned, option B at this location proposes a spooey instead of a diamond interchange. This also includes the northbound connection to the east frontage road. As I noted, since this is a spooey, the separated shared use path is located near the interchange for better safety and connectivity to this interchange type. In addition to what's proposed at the interchange, we've also proposing new and improved I-15 crossings north and south of the interchange. A new connection between the park and Centerville on the east side and the Legacy Trail and on the west of I-15 and Legacy, and a widened Pages Lane that will better accommodate bike and pedestrian movement. Moving south into Bountiful and West Bountiful, we have three options that function together between the 5th South and 400 North interchanges. Option A would keep the half diamond interchange at 400 North and convert 500 South to a diamond interchange as well. It also includes reconfiguring the off-ramp at 5th West onto a right exit rather than what's currently a left-hand exit. We would also create a new shared use path from 5th South to the Woods Cross Frontrunner station to improve transit access. This is consistent in all three options of this area. Option B would add a southbound off-ramp from I-15 to 400 North. This would eliminate the left-hand off-ramp from I-15 to 5th West, which improves operations and safety of I-15. Other elements of this option are consistent with option A. Finally, in option C, 400 North would become a full diamond interchange and a collector distributor system would link the 400 North and 5th South interchanges. The collector distributor system would improve safety on I-15 by eliminating the weaving that often occurs here. It would also require a wider footprint. Other features of this area are consistent with the previous options. Next up, options in Woods Cross and North Salt Lake. I'll start with the I-15/215 interchange. In both options, we are proposing a full interchange at this location. That means there would be full access in all directions along US 89, I-15, and 215. This full connection reduces traffic on 2600 South and Main Street. In option A, we are proposing a 2600 South Diamond interchange, a shared use path connecting North Salt Lake and Salt Lake City along US 89, the relocation of 8th West to connection with Wildcat Way under I-15. You can see here that 2600 South and 800 West are designed to be pedestrian and bike friendly, improving safety and access across I-15. Option B includes many of the elements in option A, but here at 2600 South would be a SPUI. As with other SPUIs elsewhere, we proposed a shared use path separate from the wet roadway through the interchange. In addition to what's being proposed at the interchanges in this area, we will provide greater width at 1500 South, Main Street, and Center Street to improve access for all users. Also, with full access at I-15, 215, US 89, we would remove the southbound off-ramp at Center Street to be compliant with federal access. Finally, in Salt Lake City, we have two options. Option A includes a diamond interchange at 600 North, which connects to a new interchange at 2100 North with a collector distributor system. This reduces traffic on 600 North west of I-15. The new 2100 North interchange provides better access to industrial uses on Beck Street and to the refineries west of I-15, which should reduce truck traffic on 600 North and in the Salt Lake City area. This option also improves access to the 1000 North and 900 West area, accommodating access to I-15 in all directions, which reduces traffic as well on 600 North west of I-15. We have also included an improved pedestrian and biking connection along Beck Street. And as you can see in the cross-section of 600 North, there is a dedicated improved space for pedestrian and bikers. In option B, 600 North would be a SPUI, and a new diamond interchange would be placed at 1800 North. As in all of our other SPUIs, we have proposed a separated use path to keep bikers and walkers separate from the SPUI if they desire. A new frontage road on the west side would connect those to Rose Park to the new 1800 North interchange. This option allows for a smaller footprint between 1000 North and 4th North when compared to the collector distributor option. In addition to the proposed interchange options, all options include a new bike ped connection under I-15 at 500 North, a new vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian connection under I-15 at 400 North, and a new shared use path along Beck Street. We made it. Thanks for all your interest in all of the options we've proposed along this area today. We hope you've seen alternatives that you feel will improve mobility, health, connectivity, and our economy in the options we presented. I'm sure as I reviewed the alternatives, you've also thought of suggestions, concerns, and other observations. As I noted earlier, our next step will be to refine these alternatives further through additional technical analysis and engineering. We need your feedback in that process. Our comment period is currently open and concludes on December 16th. You can email us your comment, send it to us via the form on our website, or comment directly on the map. Mail us a comment at the address shown, but please provide your feedback. The more detailed you can be in your feedback, the more helpful it will be. You might consider questions like, which alternative addresses safety in areas you care about? Do these alternatives help to better connect you in the places you want to travel? What about the trade-offs between a reversible section versus a traditional? And really thinking about all users and bicyclists and pedestrians that better work than others. Quickly, from here, we'll refine the alternatives, as I mentioned before, further to prepare a draft of the EIS. At that stage, we will better have an idea of potential impacts from the refined alternatives, and we will want feedback on how we can best avoid, minimize, and mitigate for those impacts. Currently, we plan to be done with the EIS process in 2024, and we plan to be back to communicate with you for the draft EIS in 2023. I want to conclude with our contact info. You can reach our team via any of these methods. I'll also remind you, we have 2 in-person open houses tomorrow and Wednesday. If you'd like to talk any of this through, please join us and encourage your friends and neighbors to become involved as well. All the open house information along with detailed alternatives info is on our website. A recording of this meeting today will also be uploaded to our website later this week for those who would like to review any of the information or for those who aren't able to attend any of the meetings. Now with that, we'll move on to the answering questions you've submitted, and I'll stop presenting so that Dan can take over. Thank you again so much for joining us tonight.
All right, Tiffany, thanks so much. Great job presenting. That's a lot of good information there. I just want to add just really quickly to what Tiffany had just said, that for those, as Tiffany is going through the information tonight, we know there's a lot of information there. And as she stated, that this is being recorded and will be uploaded to the website, we're hoping by the end of this week. And we'd invite you to go to that. When you go to that video, it actually has timestamps in it that will help you to scroll through the presentation to get to the points where you want to look for specific content. And so that hopefully will be a helpful tool for you. And then also the exhibits in Tiffany's presentation are also available on the study website. One other thought too is that some of the comments that have been typed into the Q&A, we really appreciate those, but we want to make sure that you also know that we need those comments submitted as official comments. And to do that, by either mailing the comment, sending us an email, utilizing the comment portion of the study website, or by going into the interactive map on the website and typing in a comment. Those are your 4 ways to give us a formal comment. So if you shared something tonight in the Q&A, please be sure to also share that with us through those other 4 methods as well. Okay, so let me pull up some of the questions we have and we'll go through those. Give me 1 second here. Okay, for our first question, have there been any non-widening options studied, for instance, by shifting modes of travel from personal vehicles to public transit? It would seem that these additional alternatives should be explored to ensure that the best alternative is picked. Tiffany, you want to take a first cut at that, or is there someone on the team you'd like to answer that? Actually, I'm going to go to Shane Marshall to answer that question. Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Dan. There have been let me turn my video on. There have been a couple of comments similar to this within the chat. So when UDOT has taken a look at a project like this, we are building off of the long-range plan. The long-range plan takes into account of all of those modes: transit, pedestrians, and vehicles. So this project is one piece of that plan. So it really is a holistic approach to consider multi-modes of transportation to expand capacity, enhance operations, and meet demand. As part of an overall system, it's not just this project, but in order to meet the demand of the future, all of the projects within the long range plan have to be developed, including transit, including double tracking, front runner. So while the transit isn't specifically included in this project, it's part of the overall solution to the transportation need of the entire Wasatch Front.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Shane. Our next question here is, why was this study not planned with the West Davis Corridor project? How do they tie together the communities that have been sacrificed for the West Davis Corridor, continue to take the brunt of loss here with safety, health, quality of life, noise, and noise impacts? Shane, would you like to go ahead and take that one again?
I'll take a crack at that one as well. So both the West Davis Corridor and I-15 have been working together to make sure that the solutions are compatible and will be compatible well into the future. And both projects are part of the long range plan. So again, tying back to that long range plan, we're trying to implement that plan so that we can better meet the transportation needs into the future.
Thanks, Shane. Okay, Kevin Kilpatrick, also on our project team. Here's a question we have for you. How many homes are impacted by the different alternatives? When will the families be reached out to if their property ends up being impacted by this project?
Hi, Dan. We don't have a good answer on that one just yet. We know there's possibility for impacts to properties adjacent to I-15 with any of these alternatives, but we're still early on in the engineering process. So until we kind of have final impact lines, we won't necessarily have a final answer on that, but we anticipate getting there in the next few months, and all that information will be available as part of the draft EIS that will be anticipated in fall 2023.
Thanks, Kevin. Our next question here is with regards to Glover's Lane. The question is also Glover's Lane, the Farmington High School area needs help as students currently commute as far north as Kaysville through neighborhoods versus being able to use I-15. Are there alternatives for this? Shane, you want to tackle that one?
Sure. In the Farmington area, option B is a full interchange at Glover's Lane that would provide access to both east and west. So you could get on and off of I-15 at Glover's Lane to access the freeway, access the new high school, sorry. This is a, it increases access to the west side significantly. This is one of the areas where we're looking for a lot of feedback from the community, especially in regards to that area. Does this meet the need? Those type of things. So yes, we are considering it.
Great, thanks, Shane. Our next question here is, can you elaborate on the removal of the southbound Center Street exit in North Salt Lake? I believe something was said about removing it to fulfill federal requirements with the other Woods Cross and North Salt Lake changes. All right, Shane, you want to tackle that one?
Sure, I'll do another one.
Thanks, Shane.
So I'm gonna get sick of hearing my voice tonight. Yeah, we have right now the study proposes removing that southbound off ramp. That in the PM peak, the amount of traffic on that ramp is pretty light, and so that traffic will be diverted to the 2600 South interchange. We are looking for feedback in this area. Right now, as part of the study, we need to work with our partners of FHWA to really understand if that one access point can remain or not. Right now, we believe it does need to be removed.
Great, thanks, Shane. Another question here is seeing if we have any updates to Park Lane. Specifically, they're looking for improved pedestrian or bike lanes at that location. Tiffany, would you like to?
I can jump that one.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany.
And Alexis can help me out here. There are, as a separate study and project, yes, improvements for walkers and bikers are being looked at. But Alexis, you want to help me if there's a detailed analysis or description of what's going on there? I welcome your help.
And just to clarify, we're talking about Center Street in North Salt Lake.
We are talking about the improvements to Park Lane by walking and biking. The department has a separate project where we are looking at improvements to park and for walkers and bikers. And I'm happy to give you additional content offline.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany. Alexis, is your audio working now, or do you want to take a try?
Yes, sorry, to address Park Lane specifically, that is a little bit outside of our study area. We are working with that team to look at how to make the pedestrian east-west connectivity more comfortable, more direct in that area. So we're not addressing it specifically with this, but we are closely coordinated with the Park Lane team, and we are looking at strong connectivity just south of there and south of the Front Runner Station, like along State Street in that area, to provide a direct and safe connection for people walking and biking and accessing transit as well.
Great, thanks, Alexis. Okay, Shane, another one for you here. This question is, I want even more reversible hot lanes, perhaps 3 or 4 lanes. Why are only 2 shown as an option for option B? As we
Put our alternatives to the traffic model, we try to figure out how many lanes we need to meet that purpose and need. And right now, the modeling shows that we only need 2 in the peak direction, excuse me, to meet that need out into 2050. So we see no reason to build extra lanes when they're not needed.
Okay, thanks, Shane. Kevin Kilpatrick, this question is for you. The EIS on your website, the Front Runner double track project was mentioned. Will you be looking at ways to prioritize current and future residents along the Wasatch Front to take this and other public transportation?
So we are considering the double track and all other transit projects that are on the Wasatch Front long range plan. Those are all assumed as part of our 2050 no action. So that is kind of built into our analysis for all the alternatives we're looking at. And we've been meeting with UTA. I mean, really what we're trying to do is just make sure we know what projects UTA has, and we're trying to make sure this project, especially given that Front Runner and I-15 are parallel for 5 or 6 miles of this corridor. We're trying to make sure they have the space to do their planned project and make sure that what we're building is going to be compatible with their project. But we're also not trying to put different projects onto UTA that they're not ready for and not planning on. So we're trying to be comprehensive in our approach to transit. But yeah, we're certainly trying to encourage good travel, good transport on all modes with this project.
And just
Great,
to add
thanks,
on to
Kevin.
that,
Okay, for this next question, does the traffic modeling listed account for Highway 89 changes and the new West Davis corridor?
I can answer that one too.
Shane, you
Dan.
want to take a try at that one again?
Sure. Yes, it does take into account all of those changes. Any project that's in the long range plan uses the background for this. So we take all of those projects, we model the overall need, and then we come up with solutions to the I-15 corridor and each of the connecting streets to it. So yes, they're all considered in the traffic model.
Okay, this next question asks, is there a diagram that demonstrates area by area the advantages of alternative A versus B and vice versa? It appears that option B does provide significant advantages for the cost of 16 additional feet of right-of-way acquisition.
I can take that one, Dan.
Tiffany, all right. Thanks, Tiffany. Go for it.
Yeah, so what we've done is come up with alternatives that meet the need of I-15, meaning that it reduces travel time on I-15 in that future forecast of 2050. We need input just like that about, does the travel time need to be, do we need to provide the travel time as best as we can, regardless of width and impact? And we need to be sensitive to the impacts and kind of weigh against the natural and built environment. And that's the type of refinement we will be doing between now and next year.
Great. Thanks, Tiffany. You did such a good job on that. We have one more for you. Okay, and this next one is, what types of meaningful outreach has UDOT, Federal Highways Administration, and Federal Highways Administration undertaken with potentially impacted communities along this corridor, particularly those that are underserved and overburdened currently by other transportation improvement projects? And then how will that inform your alternatives refinement and selection processes for the draft EIS?
Yeah, I appreciate that comment. The study team's approach to engagement is a sort of grassroots, going where the communities are and really trying to understand the culture of each community. Because this corridor is so long, we understand that each city and each segment are a little different, and we have tried to, back in the scoping phase during when we were trying to do the learning and the listening of the needs, we also were doing the learning and the listening of the people who are using the corridor. So we have developed local area working groups with a diverse background, making sure that we really do have the voice of all users, giving us input and feedback with regards to our alternatives. We're doing the same approach here in the alternatives phase, again, connecting with the community, understanding how I-15 really needs to look for the community in the future, and having that all users aspect. But if you have ideas on how that can even get better, or I really understand and respect the underserved, I also appreciate the overburdened aspect. I know there's a lot going on in everybody's lives and over surveyed and over studied. So I super appreciate the time that you're giving us today and really helping us kind of make a great connection for I-15 to be a part of your community rather than a barrier to it.
Thanks, Tiffany. I will just add that that has been a great thing with Tiffany as our project manager, is really encouraging to get out and engage with folks in different ways. And if there's anybody listening tonight that would like to meet with us at any time, please get a hold of us by email or through the study phone number, and we are happy to come and visit with you or the folks that you work with or in your neighborhood. Happy to do that. So, okay, our next question here is, did UDOT model effects of adding more hot lanes rather than keeping one hot lane each direction in option A and the reversible lanes in option B? If so, can you summarize the results of that modeling? Shane, you want to try that one?
You bet. We did, in fact, look at 5 general purpose lanes, 2 HOV lanes, 6 general purpose lanes, 2 HOV lanes. And what we found was that our need was met with 5 general purpose lane and 1 HOV lane in each direction. In addition to that, we did look at the reversible lanes that basically 7 lanes in one direction at one time. But the goal of the HOV lane is to focus on the high occupancy vehicle, not the towing of it. So we want more people in those lanes than cars, to offset that, to move more people than cars. So we did look at that. We are trying to propose widening only to the extent that meets our purpose and need.
Great, thanks, Shane. Okay, Doug, this one is for you. We'll give Tiffany and Shane a break here. What is the likelihood of the impacted areas to shrink and have less impact on homes? There are a lot of neighborhoods where their backyard is I-15. Are these neighborhoods being looked at closely to see if they can be left alone?
That is a great question, Dan. Thanks. Can everyone hear me? I think that is the feedback we're hoping for as we move forward to start studying the impacts that these alternatives will have. I don't know that we are prepared tonight to address the likelihood of an alternative shrinking, but that is feedback we'd love to hear about, and so that we can incorporate that into our evaluation.
Great, thanks, Doug. Okay.
I'll just follow up with that, the fact that we've done a lot of work. We've done a lot of analysis, but we still have a lot to do. Like I mentioned, we basically have a general footprint of what we think some of the ideas that meet our need. And from here, we have a lot of refinement still to do. So I appreciate you being engaged and working with us through this process.
I have Siobhan Locke here is helping me with all these comments and questions coming in, which we love. This is great. There's a number of questions and some comments about widening and about why widening, and are other options being looked at that would not require widening. And so I think one of the things that's important to understand is there are 3 things that help drive this environmental study. One of them was that the road surface had reached the end of its life. And for a lot of you that have driven in the corridor know that pavement surface has reached that point. There's also structures like some of the bridges and overpasses that have also reached the end of their life. And then the third thing is that we had some drainage that we need to do improvements for stormwater drainage. So when those 3 things kind of came up, that is part of what drove that there needed to be improvements done to the corridor. So then that led to what else do we need to look at? So utilizing this environmental study time and seeing what are the other things we could look to improve the corridor and make things better. So that question about widening is then ties to one of the questions that comes up about, well, do we need to increase the capacity? And also when you do an environmental study, you look out years ahead so you can hopefully have an approach that looks ahead so you're not having to come back and make improvements again in the short term. But as far as this thought about why widening, Shane, you might have any thoughts on it, or Tiffany that you want to add to that?
Sure, Dan. Yes, both of the alternatives that are being proposed currently do widen and add capacity to I-15. We are all probably very familiar with the fact that Utah is growing. Utah and the department's quest is to keep Utah moving and to improve quality of life through transportation. In order to do that, we need to successfully move goods and services on I-15, as well as thinking about all users at the interchanges and respecting, the entrance into your communities. If you have ideas on how to, reach sort of that moving goods and services efficiently for a strong economy without widening, we would welcome that discussion. But these are the alternatives where we've landed, thinking that the goals of the corridor are being met. But if you have ideas, let's investigate more. This is the time.
Great, thanks, Tiffany. Shane, another question here is, how can we better understand how multiple projects work together as a whole transit system, rather than only commenting on single projects? Example, again, is the West Davis corridor.
Yes, so this is a really good question. The Metropolitan Planning Organization, WFRC, Wasatch Front Regional Council, thank you for that. What do the acronyms stand for? They do the long-range transportation planning for the entire from Salt Lake County, Davis, Weaver counties. They have an ongoing process where they're getting feedback on the potential solutions for the 2050 plan. That is the time for those of us that are interested in transportation along the Wasatch Front to comment on the full range of projects within the plan. They have, again, transit, highways, pedestrian, active transportation projects within the plan. That is the time now is the time, actually. They're going out for public comment right now on their draft plan. You can see where all of these projects tie together to meet that overall transportation need out to 2050. I would say go to Wasatch Front Regional Council's webpage, find a time and place that you can interact with them, go to those meetings and provide comments at that point. But Dan, before we move on, I guess to further that, most cities and counties have a transportation plan that roll up into that Wasatch Front Regional Plan as well. You can also provide comments to those cities. All of these projects, both municipal, county, and state, UTA projects, all come together to solve the transportation need. It's not just one project, it's a collection of projects that make up the full entire plan.
Thanks a lot, Shane. Tiffany, this one's for you. Do we have a price tag estimate for all of this construction? What's the price tag estimate for the Utah taxpayers?
Yeah, great question. So as I mentioned, I feel like I've been saying this a lot. I apologize, but from here we do have a lot of work to do. One of those items is to associate cost and impacts and constructability, and so we will be refining that and have better information again next year. But currently, the legislature has appropriated $1.6 billion for the possibility of this environmental study concluding into a built alternative. But that'll get updated as we move forward in the refinement. The legislature is very fiscally responsible in the fact that they program the amount of infrastructure needs appropriately. And this has already, like I said, been appropriated, so will not increase your taxes today.
All right, you heard it here first. Your taxes will not be increased for this project. Okay, Doug, I have two questions here for you. The first one is, will the frontage road in Centerville be impacted with any of these options?
Yeah, the alternatives do show that as the freeway is widened and moved east, the frontage road will move east also. But we are planning to build it to the same width it is today with the bike lanes and turn lanes that exist today.
Okay, thanks, Doug. And the second question I have for you is, will the city streets coming off the interchanges also be improved to accommodate any increased traffic?
Yes, they will. Within reason, of course. Our study area extends out usually to the first major cross street, and those cross street roads at interchange locations will have improvements along with interchange improvements and freeway improvements.
Great, thanks, Doug. Okay, and this next question, it says, in the long term, with implementing new interchanges, how reliable will the new travel times and travel speeds be with the problems of induced demand? And the comment that goes with that is that, as we've seen in other major cities in the United States, where highway changes and expansions lead to more cars and soon after worse congestion than initially. So this comment about induced demand. Shane, you want to try that?
Sure. I think in Tiffany's presentation, she showed a travel times today, a travel time with no construction, one with A and one with B. You will notice that both build options, both widenings of I-15, the travel time does not get back to what it is today. So we realize that travel times and congestion will grow over time. And in 2050, we don't propose an alternative that gets travel time back down that it is today. So there will be some congestion that will be as part of this. But going back to that long range plan, the hope is that provide an extra lane on I-15, a double track into front runner, a BRT line down from Davis County into Salt Lake County, all the range of those projects within the long range plan. That will meet the overall transportation need, not just this one project. And we're not trying to meet all of the needs from this one project. This is just, again, part of the overall long range plan.
All right, great. Thanks, Shane. Doug, another question for you. Is UDOT robustly prepared to keep confusing drivers from driving the wrong way on the reversible lanes alternative? And how will this happen?
Well, I don't know how robustly they will be at that, Dan, but what we've seen in other parts of the country, these are not, this is not a new concept, but you see a combination of anything, and these are decisions that the department will make later on in the project, obviously, but the use of movable barriers to prevent wrong-way entry, gates, signs, obviously, overhead lights and indicators similar to the variable message boards that you see out on the freeway today would be used.
One other thought I maybe add, Doug, is that we've been able to visit with several of the states that have been doing reversible lanes for some time and visit with them and learn about how their systems work and kind of their lessons learned. And that has also been helpful to the process.
Yes.
How do we make that function well? Tiffany, another question here for you is, what is the anticipated timeline for starting and completing a project?
Well, I'll start that with the timeline of the study. We are in the alternatives phase. As I mentioned, currently we'll be back with our refined draft in 2023. And then we anticipate the study being completed in early 2024. Likely, should a build alternative come forward, we could see some construction happening on I-15 and the communities in 2026.
Great. I think an important thing that Tiffany shared there too is that anytime you do an environmental impact statement, you have a no build alternative, as Tiffany said. If there is a build alternative that is selected, what its schedule would be. So that's an important point. Shane, this next question is for you, and this one is about the Union Pacific Railroad. So the railroad parallels I-15. So how will the team develop alternatives to mitigate current congestion and high accident crossing locations, many of which are at grade? Well, when we tackle that one, I'll share the additional questions after that.
Thanks for choosing me on this one, Dan. The railroad does parallel I-15. The study is looking at those roads that do run east-west and that do cross the tracks. We are evaluating each of those crossings to make sure that they're safe and that they'll have lights and gates or whatever safety features are needed to make them safe. So we are aware of them. We are making sure that they are safe, and that will be accommodated part of the project.
Okay, thanks. Let me give you the part two of this one. Additionally, how will the team develop alternatives to allow safe access from regional truck traffic out of state, east-west, north-south, volumes that use I-15 and local roads to access the Salt Lake City industrial complex area? The integration of active transportation and large trucks on Beck Street will require enhanced safety measures. So I guess there additionally, how will the team develop alternatives that allow safe access from regional truck traffic?
Again, that's a really good question. You'll notice that if you dive into the alternatives a little bit further, there is a proposed new interchange or a modification of the Warm Springs interchange in the north part of Salt Lake City. That connection extends all the way over to Beck Street. So the goal is to take that traffic, that truck traffic, out of the neighborhoods at 6 North and put them onto I-15 at a different location. So really providing better access to I-15 to get that freight movement onto I-15 or onto I-80 or onto 215, where it probably belongs more than off of 89 and off of 6 South in those local facilities.
Okay, thanks, Shane. Another one here about speed. What is the design speed for the current I-15 configuration? Is the design speed consistent throughout the length of the proposed mainline I-15? They go on to say, I feel that design speeds and speed limits should be lower near crossings with highways, etc. And then they also ask, can you please give an example of engineering methods to address the high number of 100-mile-per-hour citations and related accidents and fatalities? So speed. Do you have a member of the team who would like to take this one?
I kind of wish I wasn't in the room right now because then I didn't have to make eye contact with you. I'll take it.
Okay, it looks like Doug, maybe Doug wants to go here.
Sweet. Let's let Doug go.
All right, Doug, it's all you.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer that one. The proposed design speed of I-15 is 75. It is consistent throughout our project limits. And I would add that it's consistent with what the department is doing with I-15 to the north, further into Davis County, and to the south into Salt Lake County. Now the question about the cross streets themselves, especially as they approach the interchanges, those are lower. Those are not 75, but it's just the freeway that's at that consistent 75 mile an hour. And there is another question attached to the end there. I don't know that we have any examples that we could share right now of methods, engineering methods that have been done to reduce those speeds. We, as part of our safety analysis, though, and our design, safety along the corridor is of high importance. Everything we do is, especially along the freeway, is meant to provide a safe route for motorists.
Great, thank you, Doug. Kevin Kilpatrick, this one's for you. At what point in Utah's long-range planning process are the suite of projects planned for urban areas, and thus in agreement with state transportation, subjected to considerations of the Clean Air Act, national ambient air quality standards with regards to overall conformity?
Yeah, Dan, so the answer to that is that's something that the MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations, do. So for this area, that's Wasatch Front Regional Council, and they do this with every update they make to their long-range plan. So they have a whole separate analysis that they conduct called the air quality conformity, and that takes into account all the planned transportation projects. And in addition to that, the state also has a separate group with the Division of Air Quality that takes all the transportation projects, all the industrial sources and everything else, and kind of combines that into what they call the statewide implementation plan for pollutants where you're in what's called the non-attainment status. So those are kind of the two bigger, more regional air quality analyses that take place. But the I-15 project is part of the long range plan and is part of that air quality conformity analysis for Wasatch Front.
Very good. Thank you, Kevin. Okay, Tiffany, this one's for you. Has UDOT considered a double-decker I-15 option? It says, like in really congested areas of the country, like San Francisco, etc. If so, why is that one not one of the options being given now?
So UDOT and the state actually has looked at double-deckering I-15. They, as a group effort between UTA, UDOT, and several of our planning organizations got together and really talked about the fact that since Utah is growing so rapidly, what do we want our major freight corridor I-15 to look like? And in that study, it was basically determined that, impacts are not just impacts to widths, but impacts to height can also be, detrimental to a community. So that's what we've heard and what we've digested, and that's why you see the alternatives we have today. But if the community is looking for a double-decker solution for I-15, we certainly can look at that, but there is a sizable investment related to a configuration like that, and we honestly don't see that type of congestion similar to what we see in California and Seattle and DC. Knock on wood, that's awesome, right? We don't want that kind of congestion, and we're trying to. I think Shane hit on it, that we are accepting a higher travel time in the future, but by no means will we be able to build our way out of capacity. And I think I've seen several comments that ask about how we're going to support other modes of transportation like transit and walkers and bikers. And our job of the I-15 corridor is to make sure that all of those modes are successful.
Great. Tiffany, maybe you've already answered this with that question, but a follow-on question is it possible to go underground with the freeway?
Yes, similarly, several other states have done a project like that, and that could be in the future for the long-range plan of I-15 as well, to really connect communities.
All right, thank you, Tiffany. Okay, Alexis, this one's for you. With the shared use paths that you presented with the SPUI alternatives, how can you ensure that these paths will be actually used? And for example, what will accessibility on and off of the paths look like? How do you incentivize people to not just get in the car and drive around the interchange?
That's a really great question, Dan. Thank you. So I think that level of detail is what we are tasked with next, right? We are going to apply industry best practices, what we know about connectivity, directness, and access for people walking and biking, and make sure that these pathways are designed and connect into facilities in an attractive way and in a way that's really convenient. So what's really helpful feedback at this level, I think right now, is understanding from the community what types of alternatives are preferred. We've laid out a couple of options for crossings, right? We have some very direct, at grade, buffered bike lanes and sidewalks to access east-west of I-15. And then we also have the SPUI grade separated crossing as sort of a different option in some cases. So that's really what we want to understand, is what's preferred by the community. In some instances, it's probably going to be both, right? And then also knowing that there are kind of trade-offs to both, right? The grade separated facilities add a level of comfort and that added protection, but are maybe a little bit less convenient, a little bit less direct. So that's the type of feedback we're looking for right now. And then we can design really cohesive facilities that tie into the network based on some of those preferences. And it's probably going to be different depending on the location, depending on the land uses and what you're trying to access around I-15.
Thanks, Alexis. One thing I'll share also, Alexis led some walking tours that a number of people were able to participate in about what it was like to get out and walk through those interchanges and see what it was like being on the ground instead of in a car. And it was super helpful and definitely was informative to the alternatives that we're sharing with you today, and that we'd love your additional comments on those. But anything else you would add, Alexis, to that?
I think maybe just one other comment to consider as you're looking at some of our options here is that we are trying to create a permeable I-15, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we're trying to design a facility that 100 or 200 people are going to use, but we really want to make sure that people with different levels of mobility, maybe seniors, maybe people who use mobility devices, can still access goods, services, education, jobs, opportunities. And it maybe isn't building for a huge facility with a high number of volumes on it, but it's still, I think, an important connection.
Great. Thank you, Alexis. Appreciate that. Okay, we just have a few more questions here. This next one is, what is the projected loss of lands and homes in these areas? Is I-15 going to be widened, or is it just where these interchanges are proposed? Will city streets coming off of the interchanges also be improved to accommodate increased traffic? I think we answered that last part about the interchanges. Doug answered that, but anybody on the study team want to add any other thoughts about projected loss of lands and homes, and about will the widening, will all of I-15 through the corridor be widened, or just where the interchanges are proposed? Shane, Mr. Marshall, you want to take that?
Sure, Dan. So right now, the study team has only looked at the options to move forward in terms of whether or not they meet the purpose and need. And we are looking at widening the freeway and those side streets that go into the freeway, so to make sure that they also can accommodate the future needs, both from a vehicle and a pedestrian standpoint. Right now, we don't have enough information to determine the impacts associated along the corridor. But over the next year, as we refine the alternatives, as we try to avoid, minimize, or if we have to mitigate those impacts, we will be able to have a different kind of conversation with those property owners and businesses along the corridor about potential impacts to their property. But right now, we just don't have that information to talk about.
Gotcha. Shane, another one here for you. And maybe if you could take a second and help explain for our folks on the call tonight what a hot lane is. But this question is, can we change option B, reversible lanes, to non-hot lanes? And then what's the impact if we get rid of the hot aspect, but keep the reversible lanes?
So a hot lane is a high occupancy toll lane. So what that means is that if you're in that lane, you either need to have more than one person in your car currently, or you pay a toll to be in that lane. The goal of that lane is to move people, not necessarily cars. So to remove, we don't want to remove that high occupancy, because we want more people per car in that lane to better utilize that lane to move more people along the freeway. Over the last, 15 years, UDOT has had a express lane, which is a high occupancy toll lane, that provides an opportunity for those that want to commute with somebody to enter that lane for free. We're proposing the same concept here. We didn't analyze what would happen if you took that high occupancy off, because we want to put more people in cars so we have fewer cars on the freeway.
Okay, thanks, Shane. Okay, just a few more here. This one, with congestion with more congestion in year 2050, will Front Runner run more often than once an hour or every 30 minutes during peak times, maybe even 15 minutes, question mark?
I can talk to that one a
Somebody
little bit,
wants
Dan.
to tackle the UTA one here.
Yeah, I think that's something UTA is.
Kevin?
is
All right,
yeah.
Kevin, it's all you.
Yep, UTA is looking at that, Dan. So that's part of their double track, is it would provide them the ability to increase the service frequency, but ultimately the timing and financially when that would all make sense would kind of be at their discretion, but it is on their radar as something they're considering along with the double track.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Okay, this question it's a little bit longer one here. So with a project this size, once everything has been approved and it moves forward, during what time of day will construction be done? Going back to the 90s and the I-15 expansion, most of it was done overnight, causing a lot of sleepless nights to those closest to the construction, and in some cases resulting in property damage from all the heavy machinery going through the area. What has changed since then, if anything, in this regard? So Shane, since you were probably around back then, do you want to tackle that one?
I was, but thanks. I don't know if much has changed. We haven't looked at the impacts associated with construction yet. But when you get to that point, the desire would be to, if in fact a alternative that was a construction alternative was chosen, the goal would be to complete that as quickly as possible. That would probably mean both day and night activities, not just exclusively at night, but more of a 24/7 operation to get done as quickly as possible. But again, those impacts have to be analyzed and put into the document and let the public comment on those as well.
Okay, good. All right, our last question we have here. Also, can you please review how each plan will impact 2300 North to 1600 North in Salt Lake City on each side, east and west of I-15? Tiffany, would you like to tackle that one?
Yeah, we will be analyzing impacts between now and, as I mentioned, next year. We have generally set out a footprint that, again, meets the travel and mobility needs of the corridor, and really looking at getting feedback on where these alternatives kind of lie for the future. And Dan, if that's our last question, I can actually, take I know we're got a couple more minutes, but I will go ahead and just, for sharing your friends and neighbors, the website is up and live. Hopefully you all can see this on my screen. It is UDOT.utah.gov, and all of the content related to this meeting, the recording will be here in a couple of days. So please, again, tell your friends and neighbors about this content and the fact that we would really love their feedback. Also, come and join us, tomorrow and Wednesday, and we'll have the opportunities to be in person and really look at some content. Again, to removing access to these locations, some additional considerations have been done for participation. But I really wanted to, here's our kind of comment form. If you'd just like to, you don't have to leave this information, but if you just want to let us know what your comment is. I really wanted to showcase this because this is the venue for an official comment. All of your comments placed here today in the chat, all of the comments placed on social, while they are informative, they will not be part of the document. So coming into the interactive map, those were the instructions on how to kind of use the tool. I skipped over that because I'm currently showing you how to use that tool. And the first page here is, what I-15, some of the concepts on I-15, and then on the right you can kind of go by location throughout the corridor. And again, we kind of quickly went through all the alternatives, but each of the options at each location are here. Some of the highlights on the left, again, in our contact information as well. So I'm just clicking on option B where we can zoom in, and again, we tried to showcase some of our thoughts, but we'd love really these are actually some comments that we've gotten already. You just double click and provide your comment, and I am going to cancel, so that is not an official comment, but this is kind of how we would love your feedback. Also, just by either phone, again, on that comment form, coming to the open houses and providing comments there are official comments as well. And again, I'll stop this, but I really, really, really appreciate you all attending today. Again, I know there's a lot going on. I value the feedback. I'd love the opportunity to see you in a couple of days. And if not in a couple of days, we still have 35 plus days of commenting. If you or a neighborhood that you're a part of, or a group setting would like to talk to us, we are more than willing to come and meet with you throughout this process as well. I am being reminded that we do have a couple additional comments that came in, so I'll hand it back over to Dan to get those two answered for you.
Great, thanks, Tiffany. One thing I would add also is in the chat, we've dropped the URL, the address for the website, if that's helpful for you to access all that great stuff that Tiffany was just sharing with you. And a couple of questions that just came in. This first one is the 400 North exit. And Doug, I think this one's going to you. So if you're ready there. And the 400 North exit in Centerville is a mess on the east side. Lots of honking and fender benders. I'm talking about the exit by the Megaplex theaters. What would be done to fix this fiasco in this area?
Yeah, and I'm assuming that this is the Parish Lane exit with the reference to the Megaplex Theater. The alternatives, I encourage the questioner to look at the maps that are available. Those alternatives that we show identify a number of improvements along Parish Lane to the west and especially to the east up to those next couple of intersections in Centerville. And also note that as they look at that, there is a potential for a bypass exit lane that allows those exiting the freeway to go underneath Parish Lane and go to the north side of Parish Lane and connect into the frontage road, really similar to an exit in Sandy at 106 South.
Great, thanks, Doug. We also had another question here about they appreciated the Spanish language introduction, and the question is, was some type of Spanish access provided throughout this presentation that I wasn't aware of? Just wondering how the multilingual aspect is being made available. Justin, would you like to take that one?
Sure. Always nice to throw in a new face at the end of the video. Yeah, so appreciate the question. The plan is that we will post this presentation toward the end of this week. And then in the coming days after that, we're going to add Spanish translation subtitles to that presentation. We want to get the information up as soon as we can. And that translation in addition of the subtitles takes a little bit of extra time. In the meantime, YouTube does have a function where you can use Spanish captioning. It's not a perfect science, though, from what I understand. So, but we are doing our best to get things translated and available in as quick a manner as we can. We do intend also to post the exhibits in Spanish this week as well, just so you're aware.
Thanks, Justin. Siobhan?
Yes, another new face here towards the end. But I just wanted to add on top of that, in the in-person open houses, we will have team members that speak Spanish, as we do tonight. And maybe I'll ask Sarah to translate that, but just to say that we will have those materials as Justin referenced and individual team members that can help out our Spanish language friends.
Hola. Vamos a poner este video en el sitio web en algunos días con subtítulos en español. No podemos tenerlos ahorita en vivo, pero pronto tendremos los subtítulos en la página web y también en las reuniones mañana y miércoles tendremos español en persona. Entonces es más fácil responder con más detalles mañana y miércoles. Otra vez es 5 a las 6 por la tarde.
All right, great. Thanks, Sarah. And just also offer, if anybody has any questions or thoughts or ideas about how we can improve the communication, different languages, different resources, please let us know. We're always looking for ways that we can improve and help provide information effectively and also be able to hear and gather your comments. There's another question that's come in here. Are there access options for first responders to the reversible lanes or ways to get off other than the beginning and the end of the reversible lanes? And the comment is that it seems like a nightmare if there's a crash. You can't really go around or get off at the next exit. Tiffany, okay.
Great question. We have the same question for ourselves. As I mentioned, we have many considerations we still need to work out between now and if this alternative moves forward. One of them, as you mentioned, is emergency access. We are familiar and have done many interviews with other states who have reversible systems like these. And in some cases, they have a removable barrier and have kind of figured out some opportunities to get access. And we will be, working through those as we move forward and refining all alternatives.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tiffany. Another question here, is there any rethinking of the HOV lane? And I think that's meaning like the HOV lane as a concept, such that it would allow for passing when drivers don't follow the law and don't abide by the left lane for passing only. In other words, making it possible to cross the double line for means of passing only. And then they say, sorry, it's a pet peeve. So it might be one that's shared by others. Do I have somebody who'd like to take that one? Okay, thanks, Shane.
Problem, Dad. I feel like this is my father chiming in. I think I have this conversation with him on the weekly. So right now, the goal of the HOV lane, the HOT lane, the express lane is to move people. And one way you do that is to keep the capacity high so that that lane is actually more efficient, more quicker than the other lanes. The more access as you provide to that, the less capacity that lane has. So there hasn't been an effort to do what this comment is suggesting, because we want to keep that capacity high to provide a service that allows those that are traveling with more than one person in the car to move efficiently.
It's okay. Can you hear me now? All right. Okay, with a project this size, once everything has been approved and it moves forward, during what time of day? Oh, we've already talked about this one. So I'm not going to answer that again. Ask that again. Okay, so it sounds like I was muted just a minute ago. We've gone through all the questions that have been submitted so far. So we're happy to wait for here and see if there's some other questions that come up. Okay, Tiffany, do you have a thought you'd like to share? Oh, I didn't. I thought you guys said you have. So, sorry, I thought there was. I didn't see another question come in, unless there's one we want to. Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, thanks everybody. Okay, so a comment came in about that there's lots of folks that are breaking the HOV rules, and our cameras coming to stop these criminals, and if so, when? And Tiffany, do you want to tackle that one?
Sure, Dan. Yes, the department is aware that we have a high number of violators of that lane that use them. However, cameras are probably not likely in our future. We are investigating other methods of detection so that we can, be respectful of the use of those lanes. But cameras are probably, not that I'm aware, but I can definitely look into it a little more.
All right, great. Thanks, Tiffany. Another comment that came in here is that I might suggest looking at Arizona's hot lane equivalent, more freedom to move in and out. Another one here is that back roads will be used more in the future. Any comments on back roads being used in the future? Doug or Kevin, do you want to address that one?
I take a stab at that one, Dan. I'm not sure which back roads or what area that comment's referring to, but our traffic model, again, we're kind of focused on the I-15 needs, but it's kind of a big model, tries to assume origins and destinations and put people on the roads from where they're coming from and where they're going. So that's our best available tool. So that's where we come up with our volumes.
Great, thanks, Kevin. Maybe the person that asked that question, if you have a additional point of clarification on that, we'd be happy to help answer that. This next question is on the 2600 South southbound exit. Was access to 800 West removed? It was hard to tell on the map. Doug, do you want to take that one?
Yes. It wasn't removed. As they look closer, what they'll find is that 800 West was rerouted and reconnected and it goes under the freeway and is reconnected into the east side frontage road to provide continue that connectivity to 800 West for cars and pedestrians and other users.
Okay, there's kind of an add-on to that question about direct access being able to turn right off the freeway to go onto 800 West.
The alternatives that they'll see don't believe and include that, but if they want to make that comment, it's something that can be evaluated and considered.
Okay, great. Thanks, Doug. Okay. All right. Okay. For everyone that participated tonight, and for those that have stayed with us, thank you very much. We've now reached the end of our Q&A session. If you have additional questions or comments, please submit them. We're happy to answer those and get back with you. We really appreciate the great involvement we've had in the study, and we look forward to working with you going forward. Tiffany, anything you want to say in closing here?
Just thank you again, and we welcome again feedback and helping us get the word out during this comment period so that we can get the best feedback we can.
Okay, thanks. Just another quick reminder about the in-person open houses the next 2 nights. Rose Park Elementary tomorrow from 5 to 7, and then at the South Davis Recreation Center on Wednesday from 5 to 7. And we'd welcome you there as well. All right, thanks very much and have a good evening.